Greetings, Earthlings. Do you ever have a time where you look back on how your life's been going and you look at your choices and you think, gee, if only I had just, and then fill in the blank with any just small, different choice that would have just made things go so much differently and you think better for you? I have done that repeatedly in my life. There are just some moments in time that you think if I just changed that moment, then things would have gone better. Well, my talk today is partly about that and partly about letting the bad things in your life make you a better person. I know a lot of people have talked on this subject, but I need to hear it, so I talk so that I'll listen to the sound of my own voice and then it'll maybe hopefully absorb into my head. So if you find yourself looking back and saying, if only I hadn't done this, if only I hadn't gone here, made that decision, if only I had just done something different, if I hadn't met that person or gone on that trip or whatever thing that you sort of feel like you can trace something derogatory or bad back to, I'm not saying that it's part of God's plan for bad things to happen to us, even though sometimes it is, because it is a growth thing or it's a test of some kind. Sometimes we just do make dumb choices. We don't consult Him and we just make a choice that is probably not the best, and we just don't think about it, or if we do, we think it won't be that bad, and then we wind ourselves up in a mess of trouble. So either of those things could happen, but God is still there to help you get back on track. And as I was thinking about making this video this morning, I was reading in Romans 5 where it says that suffering produces character and perseverance and hope, finally. So what you have to do is, instead of regretting the things that you could have done differently or the things you wouldn't have done if you'd known, then look instead to creating perseverance through your suffering. This has been something that's very, very difficult for me to grasp onto. Say it is a toxic relationship, like what I had most recently as a regret in my existence, and say that you do think that if you had just done something else, you wouldn't have wound up like this. You wouldn't have wound up with your heart literally broken and your faith in humanity shattered. Think about that. Persevere. Don't let your faith in humanity be shattered. I mean, that's the character that it builds, is that you get to a point where you're strong enough to trust people again, any people. I mean, you're not doing yourself a favor if you're going through life thinking that, well, I was screwed over so badly by someone who I thought would never do it to me, and now I can't trust anyone. You can't be like that. No matter how horrible somebody was to you, there are a ton more people who are not as horrible as they are. For every rotten person, there is 10 amazing people, or people who honestly, they wouldn't. Okay, there are some people who make mistakes, I'm sure we all make mistakes. Okay, so there's not just some people, there's everyone. And there are going to be people who make mistakes, who are sorry, who try to make amends. And for every person who just, screws you over and runs away laughing, there are people who will do it and will eventually make some type of amends. So there's that hope, and even if they never do, move on, because there are better people that you can actually trust. Now, I can't speak to some other situations that aren't necessarily about relationships and trust, because I haven't necessarily had them or had them recently, but suffice it to say that there are two pessimistic ideas in life that you shouldn't have. One of them is, oh, if only I had done blah, 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 because that's not really doing you any good. And another one is just hanging on to the pain of something rotten that happened to you as a result of your poor choices, that, you're doing much better to just persevere, forgive, and forgive yourself, because that has been the very hardest part of my journey. I know I haven't talked about it to a lot of you, but you know, there are things that happened last year. I was just about ready to kill myself. I felt that bad, and my self-esteem has been so low in the last year. And you know, it's not just gonna magically come back. It's not just because I said all this, but it's something that I really hope to work on in the next year and the years going forward. And I want to encourage you guys to do that with me. Just all of your bad experiences with people, even if those people were really close to you, even if those people were your parents or your siblings or your relatives who you were really close with, you need to realize that not everybody is like them, and you're not garbage just because they treated you like garbage. You are not responsible for the rotten actions of someone else. And I can say that to myself all day. It takes a long time for me to believe it, because I'm somebody who just tends to blame myself. I tend to think, if I had just been better, no. You know, there's nothing I could have done in my situation, and there's probably not a lot you could have done in any of yours to stop somebody from screwing you over. Some people are just that selfish, and you just have to let it go. And you have to forgive yourself and them. Isn't this a great view? Really beautiful. Adios, Earthlings.